Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants. Welcome back, everybody, to Fort Worth 148's podcast. This is Rhit Moore, past master and current secretary. Yes, that's correct.
This is Grant Gates, Fort Worth 148, current Tyler. Good to be back, guys.
Gabriel Jagush, Master Mason with 148. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's been a fun week. I'm still like Masonically charged up.
I guess the first thing that happened this week was Roberto's talk. That was kind of cool. So.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. You know, he had a bunch of different information to chew on, but just the sitting down, going to Lodge for an education presentation to get a little enlightenment. It's nothing like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for those who weren't there or aren't local, we had Brother Roberto Sanchez come in and give a talk on the true Masonic experience. And it was a pretty inspiring talk about kind of how to make the Masonic experience a beneficial one, something with value. And some of it's stuff we've talked about here on the podcast and stuff we're trying to implement within our lodge, but definitely a worthwhile use of our time. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, he comes from a really heavy traditional observance background. So he has a lot of this really cool stuff that he brings to the table. And what's nice is that a lot of that stuff wasn't unfamiliar to us. So that was a big plus.
Yeah. I've read the TO model years and years ago. My did. And, that's the thing that a lot of people read that and they're just like, oh my gosh, that's so much to do. And it's like, just take it one at a time. Pick off what you think would be the easiest, and start nailing them down. And you don't have to become a TO Lodge, but there's some great practices in there to pick up.
It's that snowball effect. One great thing leads to the next great thing, and the next great thing will lead you to the next one. And pretty soon you're mowing over stuff you never thought you could accomplish. So, absolutely, if you start with your degrees, or if you start with your meals, having a good meal, having a good meeting, having education, pick something, go after it, and it'll really roll into something great.
Yeah, his take on the quadrant was interesting. Did he say the list for TO was on the Masonic Restoration Foundation website?
I believe so.
Qualifying points?
Yeah. To be...
I think it was
sanctioned, I guess, or just to do what they do.
Let's take a look at this. Masonic Restoration. Oh, how about that? I had it bookmarked.
Yeah, which if you've never looked at that, and any Mason is going to be interested in this information they post.
And I think what they're doing is just a fascinating, awesome thing. They have one page called 8 Steps to Excellent, the Observant Lodge, the concept of observance, to await the time with patience, explaining the chamber of reflection, a couple of other things. I think 8 Steps to Excellent might be the checklist. It's downloading. This is...
Worth your time, though.
Yeah, it's a whole PDF. It's just 4 pages, and it's 8 points where he talks about guarding the West Gate, being proficient in Masonic ritual and law, a commitment to advance brethren through the degrees by mutual and genuine effort. The selection and advancement of officers should be by merit alone. Dressing your best for lodge. A lodge must offer quality assemblies and be willing to pay for them. The return of a sense of awe to our ceremonies. And Masonic education at every meeting. And so each one of those has 2 or 3 paragraphs associated with it.
So there's your list to become a TO Lodge. And, I don't think that our lodge will ever become one, but we've picked up a lot of practices that they're doing. So there's a good list for you to take a look at and while a dress code may never pass in your lodge, guarding the West Gate probably would, to where you put together a unified front with the whole lodge on how you're going to do that.
Yeah. Well, and besides, if we went TO and required people to wear suits to every meeting, we'd probably have a lot of people that get upset about that. Because I like that. I like wearing suits to everything, but I can definitely see that it is not convenient for everybody. And, yeah, so I don't know. But I do like wearing suits for the degrees, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think you see that progression, that as our degree work got better and better, so did our dress. We went from wearing, the blue jeans and stuff to we're all wearing black suits and ties now, which matches our degree work.
One of the things that he said actually was, have a uniform. So I don't know. I think he was talking in the greater context of the lodge itself, but when you apply it to, hey, degree work, for example, having a uniform is important, and it does seem to make a difference. So it's that unified front thing. So some lodges like to wear starched white shirts and overalls. Some lodges have polo shirts that they have embroidered with the logos on. Some lodges wear tuxes for degrees, that kind of thing. That's pretty cool.
It's something that puts you in the mindset, and I find that especially important for a degree, to get in the mindset of, hey, we are here to do work. And, when you go to work, you follow a dress code. So whether your dress code at work is safety gear or your dress code at work is a suit and tie, there's a dress code that you're following. So when you really go to work in your lodge, having a dress code does make a difference. Now, should you require a suit and tie for your stated meeting? Well, there are guys that are coming from work. So, maybe that's a little tougher on your lodge. But for degree work, if you're on the degree team or, working in that degree, I think it's reasonable to have a dress code. And anyways, it's a good source if you're out there and you're trying to figure out a place to start. Pick one, start there.
Yeah, and it makes it special, which ultimately is what the TO movement is about. It's about bringing back that special aspect. There's the je ne sais quoi that Masonry used to have that it still has in some places, but it doesn't really have anymore. And so Roberto's talk really helps gear people towards that. It may not jive with everybody, but I think I liked it quite a bit. It really spoke to me. So I would definitely say, hey, if your lodge is interested in having a really interesting speaker come by, invite Roberto Sanchez. He's an interesting cat, and he's got a lot of cool stuff to say. So,
agreed.
This past weekend, if I've got my dates correct, this past weekend was the 164th annual conclave of the Grand Commandery of Texas. So that was cool. I did not get to go because I had some other commitments, but it was in League City, so a 5-hour drive. So I said, between that and the commitments, I'm not going. But I saw a lot of really cool photos, a lot of Sir Knights having a very good time, and Gary Rock has been elected to the position of Eminent Grand Sentinel. So congrats to brother and fellow Sir Knight Gary Rock. That's pretty cool.
Sounds important.
Yeah, it's basically their equivalent of the Grand Tyler. And
Grand Tyler?
Mm-hmm. So it's the commander. The Grand Sentinel is the commandery equivalent of the Grand Tyler.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, and in commandery,
that's a better name.
In commandery, when you are elected to the grand positions, you don't run for Grand South like you do in Grand Lodge. You run for the Grand Sentinel, and so from there it's like 11 positions, something like that. There's a lot of offices.
Wow.
In Grand Commandery. So,
well, good for him. That's a commitment.
He's very passionate about it, and he's spent a lot of time traveling this year. And so I've followed him on Facebook, and I've seen him check in everywhere, and it's pretty awesome. So
That is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
See. What is the grant? I'm looking at the officers list. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 13 officers, but not all of those are in the progressive line. So
some are appointed.
Yeah. So I can't really think of it right now. But I'm thinking on the fly, which is bad for me when I've got a podcast in front of me and a phone in my hands trying to type things in. But yeah, so congrats. There was a cornerstone leveling in San Antonio. I wish I had more details about it, but I kind of dropped the ball on that. So if you guys are interested, that's something that was posted to Texas Freemasons, the Facebook group. So if you want to go see pictures of the cornerstone leveling, I think they should be out there. So on the national stage, or I guess international, there's been this movie that's everybody's been buzzing around, and it's not inside the Freemasons. That's the TV series. But there's a movie by a guy called Johnny Royal, and it's called The Royal Secret. And he is basically documenting his personal journey through the craft. It's pretty interesting stuff. And he's an American, but he was living in London at the time. And I think it was like, they went out to a bar or something like that, and he got really lost and accidentally stumbled upon the Grand Lodge of England and said, oh man, I gotta go check this out. This sounds really interesting. So, but it's another documentary, and it looks like it's going to be pretty good. So the trailer alone was very impressive. And he was on, I want to say, MSNBC's morning show. I don't remember what the name of it is called, but it was pretty cool looking. So if for anybody that wants more info on it, The Royal Secret, Johnny Royal. So
Johnny Royal.
Yeah, so today's question was kind of interesting. It was from one of our live listeners, and he wanted to know, what's the deal with Masonry and the goat? So
Masonry and the goat.
That's a classic, I think. You
Yes.
get a lot of jokes in Lodge about riding the goat and don't forget to feed the goat and stuff. There's no goat. But where does that come from? We're not really sure, actually. So there's been a couple of interesting explanations. The ones that I know, Rhit, you have some, and what are the ones that you've heard for the origin of the goat in Freemasonry?
I looked into it briefly because I was like, everything has a purpose, and if that traveled down, there's a reason for it, kind of thing. And the first one I bumped into is it was really promulgated by the Oddfellows, because they were huge back then. So a lot of Masons were part of both. And from what I understand, there used to be, or still is, don't know, a goat involved with the Oddfellows.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
I've seen the goats in their catalogs before. That's kind of when I stopped looking at it. I was like, all right, that's good enough.
You don't want to spoil it for yourself, huh?
No, not that I'll be an odd fella. Maybe.
Maybe someday. I don't know. You might get bored.
Yeah, you never know. But, I'd read in other places that the goat had been revered for millennia because its head with the horns kind of lays out the pattern of that Venus takes over a 7-year period. How that ties into Masonry, maybe somebody smarter than me would know, but that was their basis of how the goat got tied into Masonry. So
I guess maybe if you look at the Fellowcraft degree in terms of encouraging the brother to study astronomy, that would probably make sense. But I don't really know. One of the ones that I've heard is, and I think this is anachronistic. I don't think this is the actual explanation, but I thought it was interesting, is that if you look at some of the older ritual books for the craft, you'll see goat in all capital letters, which, as opposed to Gautu, grand architect of the universe, is God of all things. So I thought that was that's a possibility. I don't know that that's actually the origin of that. But
a few things I know about goats. One, at this point, I think it's really used just to try to make somebody nervous, and I don't really get into all that. Two, I know that mountain goats are more dangerous than black bears when you're hiking.
Really?
They're far more aggressive. Black bears, you can get them to run. They're kind of easily scared, unless they have babies around, which you should be mindful anyways. But yeah, they're far more dangerous on the trails. So if you're out hiking and you see mountain goats, beware, because they are not friendly. Don't try to take pictures with them. Just get on a different trail. So that's what I know about the goat, guys. Not fun when hiking, and the extent of my research has been dismissing it as kind of a childish hazing and moving on.
Yeah, that's something definitely that I enjoy the goat jokes, but definitely I enjoy them in the context of them being among brothers who have already been initiated, because when you're a prospect for the degrees and somebody comes up joking about a goat, it's not great. It's not productive. At best, you're going to get this, what the hell is that kind of reaction. At worst, you might turn somebody off entirely and have them say, oh, they're goat worshippers or whatever, which that's not a great thing to do. I find them funny. Web Lodge has an awesome little plaque by their door once you are inside the lodge room. So for brothers, not prospects, it's a little road sign that says caution, security on guard, and it's like a silhouette of a goat, if I'm remembering it correctly. I just remember thinking it was hilarious. But that's not something that a prospect is going to see. So
yeah, it's something we pass around because the best I could ever find out, it does to do with Masonry, but
yeah,
I'm not that learned.
The other association that I can think of is with Baphomet, and that's really loosely tied back because, it has to do with people thinking that the Masons are descended from the Templars, which they're not. And the Templars getting accused by the Catholic Church of worshiping Baphomet, who originally, I think they didn't have a visual for what Baphomet was. Some people said it was like a cat. Some people said it was a severed head. Other people said it was like a bone, like a thigh bone or whatever. But they got accused of apostasy and blasphemy and all sorts of stuff. And eventually this guy, and I know I'm going to mess up the name, Eliphas Levi came by, and he was a really big occultist. And he picked up on Baphomet, this concept, and he illustrated it. So when you see the devil in tarot cards, that's usually a reproduction of or a loose copy of Levi's Baphomet. And that's the thing that's sitting cross-legged with the goat head, with one arm raised high and one arm pointing down, and it's got the female chest, but then the male lower body, and all that. And it's filled with esoteric symbolism and everything like that. But it's not Masonic. However, that illustration that came after the fact got tied to Baphomet, which was originally tied to the Templars, who are nowadays tied to the Masons. So that's also a possibility. And it's got a goat head. So for those of you that don't know what Baphomet looks like, it's like this goat-headed type thing. But, again, it's not Masonic, so it's just something that got tacked on.
Way out there, Gabe.
Yeah, no, I spent a little bit of time.
Well, that's how it works. They connect this dot to this dot to this dot to Masonry somehow loosely, and it's like, Baphomet, some Masonic things.
Well, and to be fair, a lot of things in Masonry leave hints for you to go look for stuff. And so I think that even when it comes to misinformation about Masonry, you should still look into it and investigate it and say, hey, where did this come from? Because without it, I really wouldn't have known all that much about Eliphas Levi and his work in European Western occultism and stuff, and all the symbolism behind that. It leads you onto new paths of discovery. So
you're absolutely right. You nail on the head, because Masonry is the training for that. You're 100% right. That's exactly what it is. I mean, while we have a lot of lessons in Masonry, it's ultimately to teach us to go out in the world and use it. Because I remember when I got the explanation of the marble monument in the third degree, it explains what each thing means. And I never looked at art the same. Mm-hmm. It's like, all these things mean something,
Yeah.
It was like I was coming out with, the blinders were being taken off. So you're absolutely right. You should, when you look at those drawings like that, you should be able to interpret some of the meaning behind it.
Yeah. Or at the very least, drive yourself mad trying to find the minutia, the meaning of the minutia, even if there is no meaning.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the questions, and so let's talk about the subject at hand. Today's episode is Masonry Gone Hollywood, Masonry in movies and television. So, what inspired this? Because you texted me about this, and you said, "Oh, let's do this." So, what were you thinking of that kind of sparked that?
It was a couple of things. The first thing, series that came out, Sky. What's that called?
Oh, yeah, Inside the Freemasons, Sky Ones.
Yeah. Thinking about that, and then I saw some posts on Facebook about people saying, that aside from maybe a ring and a small lapel pin, there should be nothing else in the public, no square and compasses. There's merit there, because that is our root. But at the same time, I kind of pushed the two together. I was like, are these a good or a bad thing? Kind of thing. I just started thinking about all the movies that are out there. And it's been covered a bunch of times, but I thought it'd be a fun topic to kind of go over and, so we didn't have to worry about getting too deep and just kind of have a fun podcast with it.
Yeah, it's a fun subject. I pulled up a list of, I was looking at all these movies, and there's a bunch of them. And even back in the early 1900s, people were making movies about Masonry. And some of them are funny, and then some of them are not funny. One of the ones that I really liked was a movie from 1915. It's called Are You a Mason? And the summary from Wikipedia is great. It's pretty short, but this guy discovers that his wife wants him to get out of the house more often, and that she wants him to do that by becoming a Freemason. And so he takes advantage of this opportunity, and he just leaves the house for several nights at a time. And he says, yeah, I'm at lodge, but he's not at lodge. He's out partying, right? And so, he's like, yeah, I'm just going through the degrees and stuff, and, I'm just at stated or whatever. And then his wife invites her father to come visit at the house. And he is the Grand Master of that jurisdiction. And so he's going, oh man, this is terrifying. And he's really panicking. But at the same time, her dad is also going through the same panic, because he's not a Mason either. So he's just pretending to be the Grand Master. So, and they remade the movie like a decade and a half later with sound, because it was originally a silent film. But I thought that was great. I'm going to have to look it up and find it and watch it, just because that sounds really funny. So,
oh, that's pretty cool. Before we get too deep into like listing off movies that we found, what's your guys' favorite?
Oh, mine is probably a spoiler for the end towards the meat, but definitely it's got to be National Treasure, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
If you don't answer National Treasure, I mean, come on.
If I had to pick a movie that wasn't National Treasure, I don't know.
Well, a lot of the movies I found are small references. The main character,
yes,
has a Masonic ring on.
Indirect.
Yeah, indirect references. Some of the fun ones I found, There's one called The Man, where a murderous gun-dealing villain in the story, Joey Trent, is shown wearing a Masonic ring. A lot of villains wear Masonic stuff. So
one of the bad guys in The Wire wears a Masonic ring.
Yeah, Mad Max in the Thunderdome, 1985. There's a square and compass on a shirt of a villain.
That dude's wearing a full-on like medallion thing. Oh, yeah. It's like a chain with it on there.
I like the fact that one of the themes of Masonic references in movies is it's always the villain. It's always the bad guy wearing his ring.
That's the truth.
I guess we make really good bad guys. I don't know.
I don't know. I never even noticed. American Gangster is one of my favorite movies. I really, really enjoy that flick. It's a Denzel Washington movie. It's mid-2000s, and apparently one of the police members is wearing a Masonic pin. I actually went back and watched, and sure enough, he's wearing a lapel pin. So that's one of the few that it wasn't a villain wearing a Masonic logo. But I did see that everything I found really, it was always the villain wearing a.
Well, the Buckshot wears it in Tombstone. Isn't that his name?
Are you talking about the necklace?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big necklace too.
Everybody goes and sees him at the stock show too, but I can't remember what. I think it was Buckshot something in the movie, but it was Tombstone. Everybody's probably screaming at the podcast.
Big mustache, right?
Yeah. And he's actually a Mason as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm totally at a loss. I don't remember this name. Yeah, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I think I've got it pulled up. I'll get to it here in a second.
I got a picture for you guys. I'll drop it on the chat real quick. It's a big one. If you missed it, you weren't paying attention.
So I'm surprised that neither one of you even mentioned the Dan Brown. Which one was that? That was all about the Chamber of Reflection, and I get them mixed up.
Did they make a movie?
Was that the Da Vinci Code? Yeah, they did.
The Da Vinci
There was
Code.
2 of them.
Man, I am not a fan of that directing style on the Da Vinci Code. Like,
it's a bit cheesy.
It was a bit cheesy. It's like it's one of those ones like from the first moment in the movie, you can immediately identify the hidden bad guy, because he's wearing black. It's like, ooh.
Yeah. He's also like an albino, which right. Not this. I guess not the secret bad guy, but yeah, the obvious bad guy looks like a bad guy. He's always wears black and he's an albino. But yeah, you're right. There's one guy that is operating behind the scenes who always wears black. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, man, it's just so out there, and that drops my interest real fast. Like if I can tell you who the bad guy is in like the first 3 minutes of a movie, I have immediately checked out, and I'm going back to Star Trek. So
the books were better, but
and hear about saving the whales than watch a movie along those lines. So, anyways, for your Star Trek nerds out there, I'm sure someone caught that. That wasn't me. I hope it's not just me.
No, I feel you.
You smell what I'm cooking over there?
I do. Trying to think. There's a short film that popped up. Now, I like this one because it's ludicrous, and it's just, looking back on it, you go, wow, like, this did not age well. But there's a film short called, I think it's called Bobby Bumps Starts a Lodge. And Bobby Bumps was this cartoon character that existed in the 19-teens, and he would get up to all sorts of adventures. Think of him kind of like Calvin or Dennis the Menace, right? And he shows up at a farm with a goat, and he's trying to get it into the barn, but he can't, so he has to shove it into the barn and trick it into the barn. And so then he closes the door, and just as he closes the door, Bobby's friend shows up. Now, Bobby's friend is a horrendous example of blackface in old cartoons. So, if you do look this up, and watch Bobby Bumps to the lodge. Like, be advised. Like, there's definitely a blackface character in there. But Bobby's friend shows up, and Bobby tries to get him to join a lodge. He says, "Come join my lodge," or whatever, right? And he tells him, "Hey, like, here, this is the apron. This is how you wear it, right?" And he puts the apron on his friend backwards, and but Bobby tells him, "Hey, I know you're concerned about the apron being backwards, but hey, this was cool about this lodge is that they do everything differently." So now we know that Bobby Bumps is a clandestine Mason. But so he blindfolds his friend, and he says, "Wait here until I get you the 3rd degree." And so his friend is just standing out in a field, and Bobby grabs the goat, and he's trying to get the goat to ram his friend in the butt. And his friend is sitting there, kind of bent over with his butt, sticking out. And so he's expecting to get a paddling, right? And so, but Bobby lets the goat loose, and the friend who's expecting the paddling turns around to kind of headbutt the paddler, and he ends up headbutting the goat and knocking the goat unconscious. And so then he thinks, he's super psyched. He passed the hazing, and Bobby gets really mad that his trick failed, so he chases his friend away. And they're running around, and there's a cliff involved, and there's a tree involved, and then eventually a black bear shows up. And the kid in blackface, the entire time, like, he's dancing a lot, super stereotypically, and it's just so bad. Like,
did you watch that?
Yeah, like, it's on YouTube. It's like 5 minutes long, and this bear shows up. This bear shows up, and it's going to eat Bobby's friend, but Bobby saves his friend on the condition that his friend will join the lodge. And in that time, Bobby he saves his friend, but he falls down, and he's just barely hanging on with the bear hanging above him, and he's about to fall in. And his friend says, "Well, you have to join the lodge too." And so, okay, fine. And so his friend saves him, and they both agree to, quote unquote, join the lodge together. And so they have themselves set up to both get hit in the butt by the goat while blindfolded, but they both jump at the same time, and then they trick the goat into falling into a giant bucket of water. The whole thing is, like, super ridiculous. But it shows you that, like, even in the 19-teens, people were thinking, like, this is good cartoon material. So,
yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the origin of the goat. Right there, guys.
No.
Established.
The goat thing goes back all the way to the early 1700s, if not earlier. So
I'm pretty sure you're wrong on that, there, buddy.
But
so, was it The Lost Symbol? I looked up Dan Brown movies, and
The Lost Symbol is the book where he brings up the Chamber of Reflection and stuff like that. And
yeah. The Da Vinci Code book was awesome too, though. That was a good book. But I was going to say, because I love those movies, I like them just for the Masonic stuff, but I go in between two, really, because I love the 10 Commandments. And I can't watch it without thinking Masonic stuff. With the Charlton Heston going through the Red Sea, it's like, oh, yeah, it just gets my Masonic juices flowing. And that's a good Masonic movie for me. But I just out of nowhere caught a flick on Netflix. It was a series, and I think it came from Stars. It's called The Pillars of the Earth. Have either one of y'all ever heard of that?
No, what is the Pillars of the Earth?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's an actual master mason and his apprentice that are building a cathedral. And it's, I don't want to compare it to Game of Thrones because it's not like that. It's got a couple scenes where some people, die or whatever, but, there's definitely no nudity and all that. So it's a lot less intense like that. But the storyline's awesome. And every episode, I think there's 8 of them, has something.
Pillars of the Earth, and it's on Netflix.
I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore.
Okay.
Because I think it originated on Stars, and they had it for a while. But
that sounds really cool, though. Like, hey,
it's really good because just somewhere in each episode it ties back to something in Masonry and just gets you thinking. So why I love those Dan Brown or Dan Brown gets me thinking as well. But like the National Treasures, that was just had the cool effect. Oh, that's cool. It never really got me down a rabbit hole of symbolism.
Yeah.
The Pillars
because
are no longer on Netflix. Just to...
I'm sure
no longer.
Possible to get it via DVD or something like that.
Probably got dropped. Yeah.
Yeah, but they build it. They build the cathedral, and the guy makes them build it faster than they should have, and they have trouble.
No.
And then he builds a good one. It's got a lot of Masonic ties. They tampered.
I was actually recently talking to somebody. It was a very strange interaction, but this guy he was asking me a bunch of questions about Masonry, and I answered as best as I could. And he seemed really interested, but he said that he didn't want to get involved with Masonry because he's really bad at social interactions and stuff like that, which I told him that's never stopped a lot of Masons. But he was more interested in operative Masonry than current Masonry. And he says, no, if I want to get involved in Masonry, I would love it to be the Masonry that you saw 500 years ago, 700 years ago, operative Masonry, real, true Masonry. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective for him to have. So I did tell him about the operatives, which is a group. You have to be, I think, a Royal Archmason to join them, but they concern themselves with operative Masonry. So, but he said, well, do I have to be a regular Mason first? And I said, yeah. And I said, well, I can't do that then. So some people just aren't cut out for the fraternal aspect, I guess.
Yeah. No. Go ahead, Gabe. Grant.
I was going to say that there's one here, a 2013 flick, actually titled "The Freemasons." That's what I was going to ask if you'd seen it. Have you got? I haven't seen it.
I have not seen it. I had never heard about it until I saw the summary when I was looking stuff up for this podcast. So
right. So the tagline for this movie is "Freemasons don't control everything, only the things that matter."
Oh man, that is just
and
super
apparently
cheesy.
The plot is a wealthy banker is ritualistically and brutally murdered. The banker's daughter and only heir call upon Cyrus Rothwell, a brilliant but eccentric freelance writer, to assist in the investigation. Teaming up with a homicide investigator, they suddenly find themselves thrust into the cryptic world of Freemasonry, pitted against a killer searching for a legendary relic shrouded by hundreds of years of myth and mystery. Apparently, it was good enough to prompt a sequel, which was supposed to release in 2015, called The Freemasons 2 Retaliation. Let's see if
oh my gosh, I love that title.
Nice.
The Freemason 2, like Retaliation. That's just awful.
I heard.
And I know that they were like talking about interviewing the Grandmaster in that movie for part of the criminal investigation, and interviewing some Scottish Rite Masons and stuff, and they placed a huge amount of importance in that person being a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason, or they did not even Scottish Rite, they just said 32nd degree Mason, and I was just going,
apparently the follow-up plot summary: 3 years following the murder prominent Freemasons, the new Grand Master struggles in his campaign for U.S. Senate position against rumors of his Masonic conspiracy, fiery and capable of Victoria Swain. His frustrations turn suspect as a series of attempts on her life throw the worldwide ancient order back into suspicion. FBI agents investigate to find the shadows and figures lurking within Freemasonry, more complex than they ever thought possible. So sounds pretty terrible, but maybe we should watch it.
I feel like that would make a great drinking movie. Where like we can set up a game and make up a set of rules for it. Like we get one person to watch it ahead of time and create a rules sheet, and then we all go get alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, we could do a bingo board. We could watch it blind and do a bingo board.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
No, the round table had watched it, and they gave it the meh, it was okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I never really sought it out.
there's another movie that suffers from like super contrived stuff, and I haven't seen this one, but I ended up reading a bunch of it, and it's a movie from 1999 called End of Days, and Arnie is in this, right? And so Schwarzenegger is in this, and he's this cop called Jericho Kane, and he has to save a girl from Satan. Like, that's part of it. He gets involved with somebody that gets him involved with this girl that Satan is trying to have children with her or something like that to start a new demon race or whatever. And he always carries around this, Jericho Kane, the officer, carries around this amulet, a super weird amulet. And I wanted to copy the exact quote of him explaining what the amulet is, because I read that and I went, no way. So he says, Now this amulet is from a Masonic order in the former sub-heirdom of the Vatican Knights, of the Knights of the Holy See. They await the return of the Dark Angel to Earth. And I'm just going, what?
Okay, so I've actually watched this movie.
You actually watched it? Tell me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You haven't seen that, Gabe?
You haven't seen End of Days?
I haven't seen End of Days.
Awesome.
Okay.
If Arnold's in it, I'm watching.
All right. Yeah. One, yes, Rhit is correct. Arnold's definitely worth watching. Two, if you don't take into account the really crappy 1999 computer graphics
and dialogue,
End of Days. The dialogue is terrible, but it's not a terrible movie. Like it's one of those like serious flicks that's more of a comedy. It's totally worth watching. Yeah.
You mean like unintentionally a comedy?
Exactly.
Yeah, like get to the chopper moments. Get to the chopper.
Yeah,
I feel like Armageddon really qualifies like that. Armageddon.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good juxtaposition. Yeah.
In terms of like things that were supposed to be super awesome and just ended up being kind of funny instead.
Who is that gal that plays the lead who has like the gigantic mouth? Isn't she like the daughter of the lead singer of Aerosmith?
And Armageddon?
Liv Tyler.
Yeah, man.
Liv Tyler. I remember her from
get over that.
Lord of the Rings is what I always remember her from.
Yes.
She was
that's another one.
Gives up her immortality to live with Aragorn. But anyway, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go sit in my corner now.
Those movies get me thinking Masonic, though. They're funny. That Lord of the Rings does, for sure.
There's a ton of religious symbolism in there, for sure.
Yeah. Star Wars does as well.
Star Wars.
But Star Wars is very intentionally so, but I don't know if it's necessarily meant to evoke those thoughts or if it was just a convenient plot structure, but I preferred to think the former rather than the latter. But it's the classic Greco-Roman hero's tale,
No, and that's what kind of why I equate it, because I really feel like Masonry is kind of the hero's quest, the hero's journey. And he wrote that book he was inspired by Joseph Campbell's book, Hero of a Thousand Faces. That's where Star Wars came from, the whole outline for it. So yeah, you're exactly right. It follows that hero's journey. So for me, it gets the Masonic juices flowing.
For me, it makes me very upset that previous generations did not continue to focus on space travel. Because honestly, I really want to go to a bar with the guy that plays the clarinet from his nose. Like, Also, man, the 2005 re-edits where they added the whole little song. Oh, awful. But if you guys, I can talk a lot more about sci-fi movies if we want to get into sci-fi movies rather than Masonic references, because that's
at some point we're gonna have to do one on esotericism in sci-fi, because there's just a wealth of that.
Please.
And Star Wars is actually a really good example of that. So
Star Trek, Deep Space Nine comes to mind. Captain Sisko he's so deep. I mean. Terrible plot structure. They're stuck on this space station, and they got this overheating battleship. It's ridiculous. But if you ignore everything but the Cardassian and the Gemini Wars, pretty good. Those are pretty good. And then Captain Archer and Enterprise. I mean, he would make a good Mason. He was all right with the Xindi War. Real solid stuff. Just go straight to season 3. That'll get you there. All right. And now it's time for me to go back in my corner. All right.
So
nerd alert.
Going back to Masonic or movies about Masonry, one of the interesting movies that I saw on the list was a movie from 1943, and it's called Forces Occultes. And I'm not going to read the full French title because I will butcher it, just like I just butchered those 2 words in French. So look at me, I only need 2 words just to ruin a language. But it's an anti-Mason film from Vichy, France. So that's the Nazi-occupied French puppet government. And the full title in English is Occult Forces, The Mysteries of Freemasonry Unveiled for the First Time on Screen. And so the story follows this young guy who thinks he can join Masonry to save his career. And through the process of becoming a Mason and all this, he learns that the Freemasons are conspiring with the Jews and with the Anglo nations in order to subvert peace in continental Europe, and specifically to try and get France to start a war with Germany. So this was something that was commissioned by the Nazi Propagandaabteilung, and so that was part of their misinformation branch or whatever. And the guy who ended up directing it, the guy that commissioned him, the commission to direct it, he had actually been an officer in his lodge for, I think, 8 years or so. He was the venerable in his lodge, which I think in the Grand Orient, I think is equivalent to the worshipful master. So that was interesting. And after France was liberated, the director of the movie and a bunch of other people involved with the movie were executed because of collaboration with the Nazis. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Crazy. So it's funny we haven't even brought up the Man Who Would Be King. Have either one of y'all seen that one?
Is that the Huey the Long movie?
Oh, I don't know. It's I know it was based on Rudyard Kipling.
Oh no,
That's
I'm
one of his
totally
stories, but it's with Sean Connery.
Yeah,
but,
I saw that once, ages ago. He's in Nepal, right?
Yeah, it's from 1975. I saw it when I was a youngster, so I don't remember any of the Masonic ties, but apparently the whole plot line, Masonry's intertwined with it.
Well, I remember that they think they mistake him and his buddy for gods at one point. And the whole thing comes crashing down when one of them gets cut by accident, and they go, "Wait a minute, gods can't bleed." So, yeah, because it's a guy called Carnahan is I think his name, and one of them, Sean Connery, is in that. He plays one of them. I don't remember which one he is, but it's 2 British guys that get mistaken as gods by the guys that live in the mountains. So.
That's exactly right. I just looked it up, yeah. Convinced the Kafiristan tribes.
The what?
Yeah, go watch the movie.
Yeah.
You want to get your Masonic fix.
I was thinking of... So when you said The Man Who Would Be King, I got confused with Huey Long because he had a song or a saying that he used to say, every man a king. So... But Huey Long, an interesting cat. I don't really know too much about him, but related. So let me think. What else do I have here on this list? End of Days. There was this movie.
Very serious films, gentlemen. That
two very serious films.
Very, very, very serious. We have Flushed Away. It is a...
oh, wow. What is even going on in that screenshot?
Yeah, so the evil villain the toad with 4 fingers, his pinky ring is a Masonic ring. And apparently he's tricking some sort of potato man, it looks like. And it's not very sharp, but you can see that it's clearly a square and compass. So the evil toad, clearly a master mason, which totally makes sense. And then there's another movie also in 2006 called The Ant Bully. And the ant bully sits in a chair with a square and compass on it. So two very serious films that
it's like a cartoon,
clearly
like
defined
his
our
grandma.
craft.
Huh.
Yeah. Maybe it looks like he's in his grandma's house in a rocking chair, and it has a square and compass. I would imagine
that's there. That's kind of interesting. Yeah. Like if that's his grandma's rocking chair, then I'm wondering like what the deal behind that is.
Yeah, maybe there was just a guy on staff or maybe an artist on staff that was a Mason and felt like throwing something in there.
Maybe his grandpa's rocking chair.
Yeah, I mean, I always think, and stuff like that maybe there's a brother working that felt like throwing in a kind of a little shout out to the craft, which.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Cool idea. Just be like, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
So I was just reading through one. What is this on? The Midnight Freemason. He uncovered that Captain America was a Mason.
That one's kind of interesting. That is an alternate universe Captain America. So I didn't write anything down about that because it's a comic book and not a movie. But in one of the many Marvel, or is it Marvel?
It's Marvel.
Yeah, he's Marvel, and it's during the Civil War series that Captain America is unveiled as a Mason. He joins the Masonic Order after the Second World War. In the Civil War series, he doesn't get frozen for as long, so he ends up joining the Freemasons after the Second World War, and he actually hides within some Masonic areas during his.
My understanding, though, is that yes, that happens, but it's also like a different captain from art. Like it's a different multiverses captain.
So Marvel doesn't do the multiverse. DC has the multiverse. Marvel has alternate timelines. We're I forget who it is, but there's someone who can travel and change timelines.
Bishop.
There you go. So Marvel has alternate timelines rather than the multiverse. DC really, really dabbles into the multiverse theory, which is fun. I like the multiverse theory, but it gets to be a little much. In my opinion. Also, shout out to my cousin. Anyone who wants to read Supergirl. My cousin is the head writer of Supergirl right now, so
cool.
Has been for several years. Yeah, awesome guy. Couldn't disagree with him more politically, but a really cool guy, and he can write through his nose, man. The guy really does have a skill. Yeah, he really does. So, hopefully that drives some book sales.
So we didn't say anything about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen either, did we?
I don't. Not think that that's did. But that one, like, they have some symbolism in that movie too, right?
Yeah, like the square and compass pops up a few times, but other than that, it's like nothing Masonic about it. Maybe the title gentleman.
So we haven't brought the librarian, which, I mean, the title "Return of King Solomon's Mines." It's a 2006 film. Has anyone seen The Librarian or the follow-up, Curse of Judas Chalice?
No. I remember hearing about it.
That sounds super familiar.
Yeah.
Who was in it?
The plot, he directed nobody I know. Noah Weil, Gabriel Anwar,
Quest
Bob
for the
Newer.
Spear. I think I saw this like ages ago.
I've never seen them, but apparently they are lineal descendants of one of the 24 original Masons handpicked by King Solomon to build his temple. Not sure what's going on there. If anyone's seen it, I'm probably way off.
I saw it a long time ago. So I think the first time I'm looking here, and it says that it was a made-for-TV movie, and that sounds exactly right, because I think the first time that I saw it, and I think the last time that I saw it, it was on TV. So, I remember that it was pretty entertaining, but I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you anything about it, because it's been a while. It's been over a decade since I've seen it, so. But,
So Omar posted that a cartoon that has a lot of Masonic references is Gravity Falls, which I've never seen that one or heard of it.
There's a character in there that's like an older grandpa type character, and the outfit of his character incorporates a fez. So he wears a shrine fez the entire.
Gotcha.
And I think he never takes it off. So I think that's part of it.
That reminded me though about I think it's Daffy Duck that does the magic of math. Have y'all seen that?
Yeah, no, Donald Duck and Math Magic. It's
Donald Duck? Who did I say? I said Daffy Duck. That's WB. Yeah, it's Donald Duck. That's a good one. If you haven't watched it, it's on YouTube. Go check it out. That's some good mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like, what, about 15, 20 minutes long, something like that?
Yeah, maybe 25 or something like that. I'm not sure. But it's good. So just have a moment or two and sit down and give it a watch. It's very interesting.
Yeah, there's one of the movies that I put down here is from 2001, and it's called Affair of the Necklace. And it's I think Hilary Swank is like the main character, portrays the main character. And it's based on a real set of events called the Affair of the Diamond Necklace, which is something that made the French monarchy look really bad, and it actually really fueled the vitriol towards the French monarchs right before the French Revolution. So it didn't cause the French Revolution, but it very much did not help. It sped it up. And in the she is like an orphan that is descended from a royal family, and she's trying to get back into that. And there's people involved, like other monarchs and aristocrats scheming against each other and everything like that. And one of the guys involved is portrayed by Christopher Walken, and he calls himself Count Cagliostro, and he styles himself as the Grand Master of the Illuminati, right? But
oh wow,
yeah, I know, right? But the real Count Cagliostro was this dude called Giuseppe Balsamo, and he was from Italy, and he was a magician, an adventurer, an alchemist, and an occultist, and a writer, and he just pretended to be this other guy called Count Cagliostro and got involved in the French political sphere, which I thought was really strange and kind of awesome. And then one of the other characters in that movie has a big desk that's covered in tons of the Masonic working tools. So that's kind of those references. I guess I'm very tangentially counting Grand Master of the Illuminati, but since that's something that we got tacked into, that I'm going to say whatever.
So, I mean, what do you guys think? Is that it? I mean, because we've named maybe half of the movies I saw on here, but I mean, do you think it's a good or a bad thing that we're in movies like that, like National Treasure and Dan Brown?
It's a mix. I think there's some cases where it's not a great thing. Like there's a movie called Brothers War that's about a British major and a German captain, and they're both POWs of the Soviets, and they're both Masons, and at one point, I won't specify what it is, Masons who have seen the movie can figure it out for themselves, but the English major uses a very interesting phrase, and it's ours, so to speak. So I think sometimes there are things that happen in the movies that should not happen. I think that anything that gives away stuff like do-guards and grips and words or grand hailing signs, that kind of thing, that shouldn't be in the movies.
Yeah.
That's that's private, and
Yeah,
obviously people have a right to do what they want. It's a free country and everything like that, but sometimes it does get a little bit, it's not annoying. It's just unsettling because it's kind of like a lack of respect.
Yeah.
And I don't demand respect or anything like that, but I guess courtesy is what I'm asking for. So,
do you demand satisfaction in the form of a duel?
No, I settle for complacency. So,
man, way off topic, but you guys remember that Simpsons episode where Homer goes around slapping everyone in the face with a glove and demanding a duel?
Well, It's funny that you say way off topic, especially I was actually going to mention the Simpsons because of the Stonecutters, which is a hybrid of like Masons and Masonry and the Shrine.
By far the greatest Simpsons episode ever.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh man, that was great.
So we like to keep the metric system down, but but yeah. So for those of you that haven't seen
as well, guys,
the Stonecutters, the Stonecutters is the Simpsons universe equivalent of a fraternal order. I think they are actually in context. They are separate from Masons because Shriners exist in the Simpson universe separately from the Stonecutters. So I don't think they're meant to be Masons, but they're certainly inspired by it, So
just so you know, Grandpa Simpson is a Shriner. So
yeah. Well, he's also there's a great quote on that because there's one part where he's looking for his Stonecutters dues card, and he's going like, "Oh, I'm a member of this, and I'm a member of this, and I didn't know that I was the president of the local gay straight alliance chapter."
Hey, can we set up the Stonecutter song as our exit music tonight?
That'd be kind of fun. We may not be able to leave.
Trademarked.
So.
Oh man,
iTunes would probably yank us.
Right. Well, so anyways, back to Rhit's question. I think some, the fact that the villain typically is the Mason probably doesn't portray us in the best way, but there are some movies that do drive interest in the craft, like The Da Vinci Code and National Treasure.
And we haven't really even touched on National Treasure much.
Well, everyone talks about National Treasure.
I know, but it's like my favorite.
Well,
we're above
we
that.
will. Yeah.
We're not above it.
we're clearly not above anything, but no, I think some of them drive interest and they can give the wrong impression of the craft. But if it gets guys in, so you can set them straight, and it helps. I think it can be a good thing. I also think it's, if it's always the villain, if the Mason's always a villain, that doesn't help. But it just kind of comes along with having any secrets in today's society. If you keep what you do in your bedroom a secret, somehow you're a villain these days. So, it's one of those.
And I think for me, because it will always be dubbed the National Treasure effect for me, because I was here when that movie came out. I had been a Mason for a few years, and people came flooding in. So from that aspect, I think it's a great thing. Things change, and we're in a different society nowadays, and the way information is conveyed throughout society is a different medium than it was before, where the front porch, you could get information all over town. Now it comes through social media, through the movies, through podcasts, through a bunch of different mediums. And the movies are one of the biggest. Where the whole hiccup comes in, and I think it ties into the cats that are saying, hey, having a bumper sticker is a bad thing. It's because we're attracting people, but we're not, like Gabe said, or Grant said, we're not setting them straight when they get here. So they come in with this National Treasure, goo-goo-eyed, kind of silly feel about it all. And we just give them that petition and say, here, let's get rocking and rolling. So from that standpoint, it's a bad thing. But if we do our due diligence, you're going to have 10 National Treasure guys come in, and you're probably going to initiate 3, maybe 4 if you're lucky. And you need to be ready for that. That's not a failure. That's a success. Because, I heard it once, if I heard it 100 times during that time, where do you keep the treasure? And it was all joking off the, just tongue in cheek. But those are the kind of guys that attracted. So you got to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Well, and for the love of God, when they come in, don't tell them about a goat. I mean,
I would fully admit to being one of the National Treasure guys because so when I'm much younger than many of the members of our lodge, and when National Treasure came out, I was 13, and it made
goodness gravy
some very life-changing impressions on me because I saw this movie and I saw these guys, they're including all these guys as Masons and stuff like that, and I'm going, whoa, Ben Franklin and George Washington, and the list went on and on and on and on. And I just immediately I didn't associate Masonry with treasure, and I didn't associate it with mysteries hidden in monuments, deep below the crypts or whatever. But what I did associate Masonry with was adventure. And from about the age of, I want to say maybe 13? When did it come out?
2006?
2004. Yeah,
2004.
So I was 13 when it came out. And it left me with a lifelong sort of like, I've got to learn more about this. And so I started learning about Masonry when I was a wee lad. And the only reason why I didn't join Masonry as soon as I could, in terms of legal age, was that I was still moving around a lot. And so I waited until I settled down in one semi-stable spot before joining up.
Yeah.
But, that was kind of what led to, we kind of thought that maybe my grandpa was a Mason, and we knew that one of my great uncles from way back was possibly one as well, but it was a lot of ifs and maybes and stuff, and I didn't start asking those questions until I'd seen that movie, and I said, do we have something like that in our family? Please tell me yes,
Yeah.
And so it's a silly movie, I look back on it, and some of the stuff in that movie, I go, oh, man, that's just not correct, but I go back and I look at that and I go, that's, regardless of how off base it is, I go, that's kind of what brought me here, And,
and that's where I think it's a good thing. We just have to be ready when the next National Treasure comes out. Because, when the Dan Brown books came out, there was an uptick for sure, but nothing like when National Treasure came out. I mean, people came flooding. And they're still coming of their own free will and accord and all that, so it takes a lot of gumption to do that. So it's like Roberto said, they're watching that movie being sold on the Ben Franklin and the George Washington fraternity. Don't let them get to your lodge and get the spaghetti dinner on paper plates.
That's true.
Roberto
had an awesome point with that.
Yeah, you got to be ready
for Templar treasures and got spaghetti dinner, and so that's so rough, But yeah, that's when you go in expecting total insanity, on terms of grand accomplishments and crazy stuff. Then you're going to disappoint the candidate unless you can provide something that provides that level of emotional richness.
You got it, and if you do that, National Treasures and all these, they're a great thing for our fraternity, because we're going to weed out the guys that shouldn't be in it, and we're going to initiate the ones that should. It's the way our process works, as long as we do it.
Yeah, good men go to the movies too.
You got it.
Good men go to the movies too. I like that.
Yeah, because so many rabbit holes that I've dug is started from some silly movie that I've watched, and it sends me chasing. And National Treasure, not so much. It was fun to watch, but the Dan Brown movies, whew, man, I remember reading it about the golden proportion, and I'd heard about it before, but just the way he wrote about it in the book, it was just like made it click for me. So for a year and a half, I was seeing that, flowers, you name it, anything out in there, I was like, there it is, the golden proportion. So yeah, nerds and good guys do go watch movies, so you just got to be ready for it. Which
you'll find me in the movies if it involves space travel, and I'm still mad at the previous generations for focusing on cell phones and computers and not exploring the universe. So we have warp drive. We could hold lodge on a starship, which I think would be the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, it would be pretty awesome
when we colonize the moon. So
literal moon lodge, and it will be under the grand jurisdiction of Texas because we're ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
So it got me to thinking too, because Greg, our senior Greg Wright, had the idea. We got talking about doing a documentary about 148, just kind of like a history on film as opposed to a history book. But he said, these Grand Lodges or a Grand Lodge money together to do a blockbuster movie per se that's Masonic, with the Masonic hero, National Treasure kind of Dan Brown kind of feel. And I was like, well, I don't know. Yeah. And that's what, and maybe that the Freemason is something like that. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but
from reading the description, it did not seem like that.
I wondered if that would be something. Let me put it this way.
It involves a cabal of bankers. I don't think that's what we're looking for.
No. And how it could be, what it could be about. It's not the worst idea. But you know how movies are, you can sink in a couple million and then they flop, or they can generate huge amount of income.
Yeah. But regardless of whether or not it flops or not, I'm in the camp of, but at least it exists and it can be seen by brothers. So
yeah, that's the truth.
So maybe it won't get a whole lot of publicity, but it can be our own little inside movie night pleasure,
Well, and in my mind, because you said correct, and I'm all about that. But what if we were to make it the Masonic kind of Harry Potter-ish, to where it's full of esotericism and is based on Masonry kind of in a loose way, but has that fantasy world feel to it, to where you have the chance to make some money on it, because that's what people want, is that be entertained when they go to the movie. To write something that's just a bunch of actors running around, chasing and figuring out puzzles, it can be good, but it's going to end up like a Dan Brown. And I'm with Grant. Those are hard to follow.
We could have them looking for the lost word. It'd be fun.
The lost what?
The lost word.
Oh, there you go.
Have them chasing it down. Of course, probably have to tile the movie theater at that point.
Well, if you think about it, you've got over 1 million Masons in the United States. If you got half of those guys to take their wives to go see it, you could figure out a budget to where you could go in and say, hey, we've probably got this much of a fan base guaranteed, and make something not necessarily super low budget, but
yeah, do something with a medium budget, and or even a very modest budget, and still get some beautiful stuff done. So,
oh yeah, you can.
You can get amazing stuff done as part of university movie projects. So, the students put in a lot of hard work and everything like that, but it's because of the hard work that they turn out amazing. So, all you need is dedicated brothers with a little bit of expertise in that subject, and I'm sure we can find a couple of filmmakers in the craft. So, but I like what you were talking about making, throwing esotericism in there, like Harry Potter. There's some incredible examples of esotericism in those books and in those movies that are just kind of mind-blowing. I know this is kind of unrelated to it, but on the subject of hiding things in plain sight, like the first words that Professor Snape tells Harry Potter, right? They're in class and he's grilling him, and he says, the quote from the book is, "Potter, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" And this is like, you go into it and it involves Victorian flower language and like old Greek stuff. In asphodel was part of the stuff that Persephone wore on her crown. In Greek mythology, asphodel was associated with death and graves, and it's a type of lily. So Harry's mom's name is Lily, and she passed away trying to save him from, Voldemort and everything like that. And asphodel used to be a treatment for snake bites, and Voldemort is like half snake, basically. And so it has connotations to the grave, and it's a type of lily, and it's a treatment for snake bites. And wormwood,
that's what I'm talking about,
is associated with like missing things, and it's also associated with the goddess Artemis. And Artemis, just like Zeus would do stuff like turning into a bull or turning into a bird or whatever, Artemis would turn into a deer. And there's a spell that Harry casts called the Expecto Patronus spell, and his Patronus is a deer. It's a stag, but, you kind of get the idea here. So there's so much stuff that is just tying back to that. And so you can put in tons of stuff into just one sentence, and you can throw that into a movie, and people will never really think about it until they start thinking about it, and then they go, oh, wow. So, and back to my corner I go, right?
Well, and I think that's what I'm saying. There's potential out there. And my whole thing is that it's the medium that people are paying attention to the most right now. Whether you think that's good or bad for our society or whatever, TV, movies, social media, podcasts, YouTube, all those kind of things are how the majority of people are getting their information. And there's a lot of good people out there that are using those mediums, and we should be too.
Yeah. And
not that we got to.
If you can't make Masonry more entertaining than Netflix, then people are going to stay at home and watch Netflix instead. So
you got it.
Something worth using as a barometer there. Would I rather be at home on the couch watching whatever?
Oh, and that's the thing. I mean, I can watch Netflix. I can learn stuff. You know what I mean? I can find those. I can get those juices flowing. They've got documentaries out the wazoo that are awesome on anything you want to know about. So yeah, you better entertain me when I'm at lodge.
Right? Because you can still be productive at home. You don't need the lodge to be productive. But the lodge can probably provide a better, more meaningful way to stay productive. But unless people know that by experiencing it, they're not going to sign up for it. Rant of the day.
Fun. Guys, do we have any more movies we want to talk about?
Oh, we could talk about movies for hours, but we got to wrap it up at some point, right?
Well,
let's talk about Texas. Lufkin Lodge 669 is collecting donation items for the Texas Masonic Retirement Center. They will be collecting clothing, personal items, movies, and medical equipment. They are looking for personal care items like toothbrushes and toothpaste and shampoo and body wash and deodorant, all of these obviously unused, and they're looking for lightly used clothes, lightly used shoes, things like that. The residents can wear puzzles, playing cards, games, things like large print crosswords and large print word search puzzles, especially if you can find the large print. The residents love having stuff to do, and board games are an awesome awesome thing because you can play them again and again and again. If you've got wheelchairs, walkers, IV stands, medical boots, crutches, that kind of thing, and they're not beat up, please consider donating those too. And so just get in contact with Lufkin Lodge 669, and they're organizing an effort to start funneling stuff through to the Masonic Retirement Center. On April 29th, Lions Junior Lodge is doing a custom car and bike show in Austin at 10 a.m. It's at the George Washington Carver Museum and Cultural Center in Austin. Entry is $25. Registration is at 10 a.m. and judging begins at high 12. There are door prizes and a free t-shirt with entry. So if you want to get involved in that, call 512-845-5549 for more info. On April 29th, Huffman Masonic Lodge 1428 is having a clay shoot at the Clay Mound Sporting Center in Liberty, Texas. Registration is at 8 a.m. Start is at 9. All cards have to be in at 3 p.m. because they're doing awards at 4 p.m. And lunch is included in the price, and there will be a silent auction. So if you want to shoot 100 clays, that's going to be $90 a shooter. You can get mulligans at $5 a pop for a maximum of 4 mulligans. And there's this thing called the Teal of Terror, which I don't know what that is, but it's $10 an attempt. So if you want to try the Teal of Terror, try it out for $10. And so the highest overall shooter award is a custom belt buckle, and then they have different awards for different age groups after that. On May 6th, Chalk Mountain Lodge 894 is holding a fish fry fundraiser from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. The tickets are $10 for adults and $5 for children 10 years or under. And all the proceeds are going to the Chalk Mountain Charitable Works Fund. If you want to join them, the event's happening at 244 South Columbia in Stephenville. On May 13th, the Rainbow Girls from Austin Assembly No. 5 are putting on a Saturday evening casino night fundraiser at the Camp Mabry Museum. It starts at 6:30 p.m. and it goes until 9 p.m. So tickets are $25 per person, and there will be blackjack, roulette, craps, and a dessert bar. So if you want to help sponsor this or buy tickets in advance, please call them at 512-217-4064 or email them at austinassembly5@gmail.com. According to the information I have, they are a 501c3, so if you're thinking about sponsoring them, don't hesitate. Go for it. So more locally in the North Texas and Tarrant County area, April 28th, Bridgeport Lodge 587 is holding a sporting clay shoot for their scholarship fund. And that's going to be at the Fossil Point Shooting Grounds. Registration is at 8. Start is at 9. Entry fee is $100 a shooter. Teams of 4. Lunch is going to be included in the entry fee, and trophies will be awarded to the best shooter and the first and second place teams. And it's open to the public, so you don't have to be a Mason to get in on this. Stand sponsorships are $100 a stand, and the door prize sponsorships are $100. And it's 1.2 miles south of Farm Road 455 on Highway 51 in Slidell, Texas. And golf carts are by reservation only, and they're $60 a cart. So this is coming out super late, so you're going to want to call 940-393-6402, and you got to reserve a cart before the 28th. And so this podcast is coming out on the 27th, so call today. Call them at 940-368-2765 for more info. On May 11th, Hearst Lodge 1387 is going to have a master's degree at 6:30 p.m. On May 11th, also, Crowley Lodge 1437 is going to have a master's degree at 7 p.m. So figure out which lodge you're closer to, Hearst Lodge or Crowley Lodge, and go to that master's degree if you have the time. I'm sure it'll be awesome. I love going to degrees. On May 20th, the Oklahoma Indian degree is happening. The MWSA of Masonic District No. 9, East Fork Lodge 650, and Hella Shrine are hosting a Master Mason's degree conferred by the Oklahoma Indian degree at the Horse Barn at Hella Shrine. And that's at 1 p.m. following a 11:30 a.m. lunch at 2121 Rowlett Road in Garland, Texas. Tickets are $25, which includes lunch. Seats are limited to 500. You can get the tickets on eventbrite.com. That's eventbrit.com. and it's only open to Master Masons, so bring your dues card and a photo ID. You may have to bring a chair. That's a thing. And bring your apron. They're not going to have 500 aprons, guys, so you got to bring an apron. And I'm going to that. A bunch of guys from Fort Worth Lodge are going to that. Everybody that can should go to that, so it'll be cool. And then on May 23rd, Ken Curry is receiving his Golden Trowel Award. And we like Ken a lot. He is a very important brother in terms of his involvement, and he's getting formally recognized for that. So that's happening at Handley Lodge, 1140. The event starts at 6 p.m., and it's at 2501 Pollard Street in Fort Worth. And again, that's on May 23rd. So if you want to go wish Brother Curry congratulations for getting his golden trowel, please come on by, because that'll be cool. In the temple at 1100 Henderson Street in Fort Worth on Monday, May 1st, Fort Worth 148 is putting on another Master Mason's degree, and that's going to be at 6:30. If we do it at 6:30, come by at 6 anyway, because we're going to want to have some time to, mingle and socialize and kind of get ready anyway. On Monday, May 7th, Fort Worth 148 is hosting a blood drive at Premier Gun Shows. So that's Sunday, May 7th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Amon Carter Exhibit Hall in the Will Rogers Center, and that's at 3401 Burnett Tandy Drive. And the station will be in the Carter Blood Care bus. So Fort Worth, come donate some blood. It's for a good cause. As always, Fort Worth 148 meets on the second Monday of each month, starting dinner at 6 p.m. for a 7 p.m. stated meeting at 1100 Henderson Street, Fort Worth, Texas. If you want to get in contact with us, you can reach us at www.fortworth148.org or at Fort Worth Lodge 148 on Facebook, or info148 at fortworth148.org. And if you live in the 64th District of the Grand Lodge of Texas and you want to promote an event, please reach out to the 64th team on 64th.org. That's 64th.org.
Is that all of them? Or did you lose them? Sweet!
It was a lot of events. Let's get done.
It's Rhit Moore signing off.
Grant Gates signing off.
Gabriel Jagush signing off.